Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the second annual Nothing Notable NFL preview show. This is an anniversary of sorts. In many ways, it marks a year completion of us doing a podcast every week. So that's cool. What, you got any thoughts about that before we dive into this?
You caught me off guard because I hadn't even thought about it. That's very true. I think all I'll say is I'm very proud of us for the work that we've done this year. I think we're getting better. I think if you go back and listen to the first one, it's probably cringy. I haven't listened to it in a while, but I think our takes from the beginning have been strong, and our takes will continue to be strong today. So let's jump in here. I think we have some good takes.
Hell yeah. We're going to go through this year. We got one question we're going to ask each other for each division. We split it up. We're doing it differently this year so that we don't have a podcast. We could talk about each individual team probably for like an hour each on each individual team.
Yeah.
Honestly, the Lions are kind of boring. I feel like I could talk about the Lions for a good 30 minutes still. So,
yeah.
Anyways, hit me with a question here.
Let's start with the NFC South. I want to start there because when I was looking at the NFC South, I was trying to come up with a divisional question. The first thing that I thought of was, is this the worst quarterback division? But that's cynical. That's mean. So I don't want to hit you with that. Instead, I want to try and flip this around. I want to be positive here because this might actually be a sneaky good division.
Okay.
This is the division of second chances. All right. We've got
spicy.
Sam Darnold. We've got Jameis Winston. We got Matt Ryan. All three quarterbacks have something to prove this year. Okay. All three quarterbacks need to prove something this year. So my question to you, is this going to be a sneaky good division? Give me your thoughts on that.
I think that this is going to be a sneaky good division in the sense that, like, I don't think none of these teams are going to be objectively awful teams. Like, I think the Falcons may end up having a bad record, but I don't think that they will necessarily themselves be like a bad team. I think they'll be in every game. I, for one, am actually quite high on the Panthers and what they're going to do this year. I think Sam Darnold has a real chance to showcase some ability. I love their receiving core with DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson and the rookie Terrace Marshall. And haven't even talked about Christian McCaffrey yet. Their defense, I think, is going to take a little bit of a step forward. They had a lot of young guys last year, and they're adding more young guys to it this year. But those young guys having another year in the league. J.C. Horn, who they drafted out of South Carolina, was one of my favorite players in the draft this year. I think he's like a rookie of the year contender type. I ended up turning this all into a Panthers question here because I'm just so high on them.
No, I didn't have a ton on the Panthers. I'm glad that you brought something. Because when you first look at the division, you think, okay, Jameis Winston went, what was he, 7-9 in his last year with the Bucs, and he threw 30 touchdowns, 30 picks. Like, you think, okay, that's probably the fate of the Saints. They win 7, 8, 9 games. They take a step back as they go back from having one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the history of the NFL in Drew Brees, even though it was a subpar Drew Brees year. But you go from him to then Jameis Winston, 30 for 30 Jameis Winston. You just kind of expect that they're going to fall off a little bit, but they still have a really good team around them, and they could still be competitive. And Jameis can, because you're going after Tom Brady at the top of the division with the Bucs. And so they score points on the Bucs. Jameis Winston, if he keeps the turnovers down, they will score points because he can throw the rock, and there's no question about that. Also, I think it'll be interesting to watch to see, with Bruce Arians and with Tampa Bay, when Jameis was there, they were really slinging the ball. But with the Saints, they have Alvin Kamara. So like most of Drew Brees' touches, or most of Alvin Kamara's touches, were like short passes. And I'm curious if Jameis adapts to that sort of system, or if they turn it into a deep ball passing situation. I don't think that that's the case, though. I think that they're going to stay true to what Sean Payton has sort of been doing for a while, and I think that it's going to be a lot of dump off passes. I think Jameis probably has a pretty decent statistical season. I'm not a fan of Jameis, like as a guy, but I anticipate that he won't be as bad as I initially thought. And then also same thing with Sam Darnold. I think that this is a very interesting showcase here for Sam Darnold, and you just talked about it, so I won't go any further on it. But then Matt Ryan and the Falcons, I don't know why, I've been so high on them for like 3 straight years. I just keep expecting them to at least win 10 games, and then they just don't.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. But what I think is interesting is if this turns out to be a sneaky good division, because we know that the Bucks are going to be good because they have everybody returning from their Super Bowl team. If it does turn out to be a sneaky good division, and this kind of plays into another division that I'll talk about later, but how do they cannibalize each other? Because if each of these teams has the capability of winning 9-10 games, how many games get chipped away from the Bucks? And does that mean that the Bucks fall from the 1 seed to the 2 seed to the 3 seed, so on and so forth? And then how does that affect the playoff standings, and how does that affect everything going forward? So I think that the reason that I wanted to talk about the NFC South in this way was just because I think it's a little easy to say that 3 of these teams are going to be bad and the Bucks are going to win the division. The Bucks probably will win the division, but I don't necessarily think it'll be that easy.
Yeah, those are all excellent points there. I think there's very clearly a gap between the Bucks and the rest of the teams in this division. Mostly because there's a gap between the Bucks and the Chiefs and just everyone else in the NFL this year, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Saints, to me, are like the really interesting one because they have been a powerhouse team for the last 5 years. I mean, really last decade, but they had a couple years in there where they weren't so good. But we'll say the last few seasons, they have been a Super Bowl contending team. Like that has been the expectation. It's Super Bowl or bust for them. This year, I don't know how much worse Jameis Winston this year is than Drew Brees last year was.
Yeah.
Like Drew Brees did not look good this last year. For the first 9 weeks of the season, when Tom Brady didn't get in his rhythm with the offense yet in the Bucks, I was saying that Jameis Winston was the best quarterback in the division because I thought for those first 9 weeks, even though he hadn't taken a snap, he was the best quarterback that any of those teams could roll out. Obviously, Tom Brady picked it up and, Bucks won the Super Bowl. Brady was Brady, man. What can we say?
Brady gonna be Brady, okay?
But I think Jameis is a talented guy. My bigger question with that team is going to be their receiving core because Michael Thomas is going to be out for however long he is. And then the receivers after him are Marquez Callaway, Traquan Smith, Lil Jordan Humphrey, and Deontay Harris. Like that's what their options are in the passing game. So I think Alvin Kamara is going to have to touch the ball 25 plus times a game in order for them to be successful. Their defense is going to have to keep them in games. I don't know how good they're going to be. But again, I also just think they have so much talent on that team as a whole roster that there's no way they're going to be like a 5-win team either.
Exactly. And if you're a fantasy player, I think you could make a very strong case to take Alvin Kamara and very, very early because he is going to get all the touches and he already has. I mean, Alvin Kamara always goes high in fantasy drafts, obviously, but like this year, especially because of what you were just talking about, because of the wide receivers, I mean, MVP Kamara, like, let's see what happens. Because if he gets injured, then I think it's all over. I think the whole thing, the whole rodeo goes down.
Right.
But yeah, it is a concern. This will be my last thing about the Saints, but it is a concern because the last time we saw Jameis Winston starting a full season, he was throwing to some A-list receivers. He was throwing to some really good receivers, and now he goes to this.
Guys that Tom Brady won a Super Bowl with the next year.
Exactly. And now he's got Kamara out of the backfield, and then
Right. And I'll just really quick say about the Falcons. I think whenever you have Matt Ryan, you have a chance to win games because I think Matt Ryan's a very good quarterback. My one little nugget about them is I think Calvin Ridley is going to lead the NFL in receiving.
Nice.
The numbers show when Julio's not there, Calvin Ridley, I think, is averaging like 112 yards a game or something like that. They're going to be losing probably most of the games or in shootouts because their defense just isn't very good. So if you're looking for another fantasy player to target, Calvin Ridley, I think, is a good choice.
Hell yeah. Okay, go ahead and just hit me with a random division.
I'm going to hit you with the AFC South here.
Okay.
You initially had a cynical take on the NFC South. I have a cynical take here for the AFC South.
Great.
Which is this the worst division in football? Because I look at this division, and there's a Texans team that won 4 games, I think it was last year, with Deshaun Watson, who's not going to be playing for them this year. And then there's the Jaguars, who we'll get into it, I'm sure. I'm not sold on the Trevor Lawrence, Urban Meyer combination. The Colts, I'm not sold. I think they're in the same position they were last year, which is they're a good quarterback away from being a Super Bowl team. Except they got, I think, a little bit of a downgrade at quarterback. And then there's the Titans, who I think are, a team that's going to have a lot of wins, but it's large part because they're playing in not a very good division.
I will just say yes, that this is going to be the worst division. Because even like Titans at the top, I like the Titans a lot. I'm a big fan of Vrabel. I'm a big fan of Tannehill. I was a big Tannehill stan when he was in Miami. So I'm really happy for his success. And over the last few years, he's been a really, really good quarterback. So even with everything that they got going on, I just look at them as a perpetual 11-win team, basically. And I don't see, because it's not just, it's one thing to say like this division will be bad. It's another thing to be like, this division will be bad and the best team in the division, I don't see winning a Super Bowl. And I don't see a Super Bowl winner coming out of this division this year. So Houston's going to be, is there a chance that this is going to be one of the worst seasons that we've seen? Because I mean, Detroit had that 0-16 season, but like that was a little bit before I was really watching every team. It's been a while since we've seen like a truly hot garbage team.
Yeah. I feel so bad for Tyrod.
Oh yeah.
My guy. This team's going to be absolutely horrible.
I don't think that they're going to be very good. Then with the Colts are so, this is going to be a bummer. This is going to be because this is actually, the Colts now remind me of the Texans from like the early 2010s when they had like Matt Schaub and Andre Johnson and Arian Foster, just in the sense that like they have the team, they have a very good team, but they're just a quarterback away. And they have a halfway decent quarterback, but like they just, it's not quite there. I was into the idea of Carson Wentz coming to the Colts. I didn't think he was the answer, but I thought he was like a pretty decent option for this year. I don't think he's going to play more than like 4 games this year.
He already got hurt. Like,
yeah.
And got COVID.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it's still like, nah, I'm not going to get vaccinated. Dumbass.
Oh, that's cool. That's a really cool take of his. Yeah. I only see disappointment. And last year, one of the questions, or the last, actually, I don't remember which NFL pod it was, but one of the NFL pods, I asked the question, is this team doomed to live in mediocrity for the foreseeable future? And I don't want to say I'm a prophet. I don't want to say I have like a magic 8-ball or anything like that, but like kind of a little bit, because unless they address the quarterback position in some sort of meaningful way, if they make a huge trade in this upcoming draft to get up to the top of the draft, I just don't know who they're going to go get. They have a shot at Aaron Rodgers, I guess. They have a shot at drafting a quarterback. But like beyond that, I don't know. I don't know what they do. Yeah. And this year, it's just going to be sort of a bummer year. Fortunately, they get to beat up on the Jags a little bit and they get to beat up on the Texans. So like they'll probably have an inflated win total compared to like what they should based on the quarterback play. And they do have a really good team around the quarterback as well, but not very high hopes there. And then the Jaguars, I'm going to be careful with the language that I use here because I've been saying that I don't buy Urban Meyer and Trevor Lawrence, and I still don't. But what I'll say to be more specific is I'll just say they have to prove it to me before I can accept it. So I'm not going in with like negativity towards them necessarily, but I am just sort of like I am skeptical, and I'm going to need them to just prove it, which I think is a fair thing to say. I'm not anticipating, I got to be brave right now, okay? I got to be bold. I know Trevor Lawrence is going to be the GOAT or whatever. I know he's like such a highly touted prospect or whatever. I'm not there with Trevor Lawrence. There's my bold take.
Yes!
This is probably going to be the most bold take I have for the whole podcast. I'm just not there. I'm not there. I don't think he's going to be bad. I don't think he's going to be a bust, but like, I'm just not there. And I can't get there. And I don't think that he's going to get there under Urban Meyer, or at least I need to see something from Urban Meyer before I can say that he can get there, is what I should say. So I think that they would have been better. Well, it's not that they would be better off if they had kept Gardner Minshew, but I would have liked to have seen Gardner Minshew play this season. But obviously the number 1 overall pick, you kind of can't have him sit and wait. But yeah, I'm I'm just gonna sit on the sideline because I know that this is a controversial take. I know everyone's pretty hyped about Urban Meyer. I know everyone's really hyped about Trevor Lawrence, but like they just have to prove it. That's all. That's it.
I want to say about Trevor Lawrence because first, okay, number one, I'm a dumbass. I said Justin Herbert was going to be garbage last year on this very podcast. I said I did not believe in him. So I could be completely wrong, but there was a reason I had Justin Fields ahead of Trevor Lawrence in the draft process. Like, I just... Look, and to be fair, Trevor Lawrence is... I think he's very good still. Like, I think he's a good quarterback prospect. I just think for the last 3 years, we've been told whatever team gets Trevor Lawrence, they're the next dynasty. They're set up. They're yeah. It's going to be incredible for them. I just don't... he has issues still, and no one wants to talk about it. He struggled in the preseason until the third preseason game when he was going up against the the Cowboys' backup defense, which is bad because the Cowboys' starting defense is bad. I don't know. I don't want to like tear the guy down.
Yeah, of course.
And I don't want to tear the Jags down because I think they're definitely going to be better than they were last year. I like most of their roster, actually. I think their O-line is a bit of a mess. I think their defense, has some young guys who, if they take a step forward, might be pretty good. But, I still don't think they're, more than a 6-win team at this point. And people they might be dark horse playoff team. And I'm I just don't see it with them.
I think the one thing you can say for the Jags that'll be positive is last year was a tank job. They didn't even let Gardner Minshew go for the whole season.
Right.
And if he did, his numbers would have been even more insane. And we're super high on Gardner Minshew. It's a whole other pod. But this year, there is no tank job. They're going to let Urban Meyer cook. And so they're playing to win this year. And I know the players were always playing to win last year, but the organization was not. This year, on the other hand, they want to see Trevor Lawrence win games. They want to sell those jerseys. And can they put together 6 wins? I think so, especially when you're playing against the Texans. For the same reason that I just said that the Colts can win some games, it's the exact same thing for each team in this division. They're all playing each other. And so anyone can get to 6 to 7 to 8 wins. And I do think that Trevor Lawrence will have a good season, a good statistical season. It's just, I don't know where... I've never seen the same ceiling that everyone else has. I see the floor, though. The floor is very nice. It's a nice floor.
Yeah, it's a nice little entryway.
It's a good floor. Yeah, but that's all I have on the Jags. That's all I have on the rest of the division. Okay, I'll go to a new division. Let's go to the NFC North. This is Aaron Rodgers' final run with the Packers. It's their last chance to win another Super Bowl. This is less about the season and more just about what happens after, because I don't really want to talk about the Lions. I don't really want to talk about the Bears yet because
you don't want to talk about Dan Campbell and his kneecap eating?
I really don't.
I'm sure Dan Campbell's a really fun guy to be around and hang out with and stuff. Nothing against him. I'm sure he's a wonderful guy.
Sometimes you just gotta do what you gotta do. And in this case, this division is a 1-team division. I don't see anyone really making a play at winning the division other than the Packers. I think if Justin Fields takes over as quarterback, then the Bears will be a better team.
But you don't think Kirk Cousins is going to come out there and do something we haven't seen Kirk Cousins do in his...
That's another thing is I was gonna take the dark route and I was gonna be will 3 of these... Well, actually, will all of these coaches be fired for various circumstances? Will Mike Zimmer be fired because of the reasons that we've been saying he might be fired for years? Will Dan Campbell get cut after one season? Will
after one kneecap?
After one kneecap. With the way that everything's been handled in Green Bay, what happens? So that was going to be the silly take as well. But no, just I guess it's a 2-parter. One is less a question and more of just a thing to watch. It's Aaron's final year in this division, and it's Justin Fields' first year in this division. And so let's watch the changing of the guard. And then the question there is how do we talk about Aaron Rodgers if he doesn't win a Super Bowl this year? And so if Aaron Rodgers goes down with 1 Super Bowl, I feel like he goes, he just like his father, Brett Favre. Just like his father. So I don't know. It's not really a clear question. It's just sort of a mess of like the Packers. Like, can they pull it off this year? I guess is the question.
I'll dance around the question away, but that got me thinking about just more quarterbacks in general who like felt like they should have won more rings than they did. Mm-hmm. Like Drew Brees only won one ring. Russell Wilson has only won one so far. Rodgers got one. Peyton Manning had one until his arm fell off and like a defense just totally carried him to that second Super Bowl where he couldn't throw the ball really at all. Yeah, interesting food for thought. Yeah.
It's kind of more a big picture question. It's less about like the division itself and more just because I think rings culture is bigger with the NBA than it is with the NFL, but it's still a big part of the NFL. Other than that, though, I think that like the thing to just like watch, and we can move on to another division because I do think this is a fairly boring division. I think the Packers are a boring team, even though they're a good team.
Can we talk about Justin Fields for 1 minute because I just want to say I love him.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. It was just like, let's talk about him because there is a changing of the guard. Starting next year, Justin Fields will be the best quarterback in that division unless another team makes a run at somebody.
I don't understand why Justin Fields isn't starting week 1 for the Bears.
It's hilarious.
And my biggest concern with that is Matt Nagy might be dumb enough to get himself fired this year because honestly, I was kind of surprised he wasn't fired anyways. And they had Justin Fields fall into their lap with just a bunch of teams being stupid, like the Panthers and the Broncos, and being like, we're going to draft defensive players instead of Justin Fields. Defensive players who I think are very good in their own right, but I digress. I think it's detrimental to a quarterback, 75% of the time when they're changing coaches early on in their career. Like the one exception to that is Jared Goff, who went from Jeff Fisher to Sean McVay, but it's not good for quarterbacks to be switching up the scheme so much early on.
Yeah.
I can't wrap my mind around even why Matt Nagy is benching Justin Fields for Andy Dalton, who I think Andy Dalton's a fine quarterback, but Justin Fields has been so clearly superior and the offense has such a just way more energy to it when Justin Fields is in. And it's different than the situation in San Francisco because for the Niners, like the locker room is with Jimmy because they know Jimmy and that's their guy. And, last time Jimmy was healthy, he led the team. I don't know if he led the team, but he was the quarterback of their Super Bowl team. Andy Dalton's just a free agent who they brought in for a pretty cheap contract who has like a decent track record. I don't get it.
It doesn't make any sense. It's kind of one of those moves that we see over and over again every single season. It's funny because like, especially in Nagy's case, like you're playing for your job. The potential of Justin Fields starting is maybe you still only win 9-10 games, but when you play Green Bay, you have a shot. I don't feel like you have a shot with Andy Dalton. No disrespect to Andy Dalton. I'm an Andy Dalton stan also, just to be clear. So
this is a pro Andy Dalton podcast.
Safety at the quarterback position doesn't help you at all because you're either losing the division or you're winning the division. Give yourself the best potential to win the division. Put Justin Fields in the starting lineup. We know he will be starting before the season is over. He'll be starting in like 4 or 5 weeks. I just don't know why they're delaying it.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
You know what? That concept of safety actually blends right into, in many ways,
I'm a pro.
A question that I had here for the NFC East. Did the Washington football team, mess up by not trying to trade up and get a quarterback in this last year's draft class, which has 5 quarterbacks that look like they're all going to be very good? That division was horrible last year. I think it's a little bit better this year just simply because Dak Prescott is maybe healthy, but he's had a shoulder issue that's been bothering him. And my thing for the Washington football team is they played it safe by going with Ryan Fitzpatrick, who, in many ways I feel like we've overhyped kind of what Fitzpatrick is. Like, because he has like 1 or 2 big games a year, and then he's kind of like, just mediocre after that. Like, you can win a couple games with him. But they opted to go with him instead of going out and getting, trading up for Justin Fields or even like Mac Jones or whatever. This division isn't quarterback rich with talent. Daniel Jones is maybe on his way out. This might be his last year. The Eagles, for whatever reason, aren't sold on Jalen Hurts. Dak is very good, so we'll put that's a different category than everyone else in the division. But they had a chance to go out and get a young quarterback with a controllable contract to add to this just dynamic defense team, and they could have filled in the rest of the gaps with money that they're saving, not having to pay a quarterback, and been a, Super Bowl contender for the next 4 years. And I just think they might have screwed the pooch on that one.
It's funny. Teams are treating Ryan Fitzpatrick like he's Alex Smith in Kansas City when there is no track record to prove that is the case. Ryan Fitzpatrick has had some very high highs. I can't even say that. He's had some good highs. And I think he's a good quarterback, and I really like him. And I'm actually thrilled that he is still a starting quarterback in the NFL. So I'm just glad that he's going to be on the TV every weekend, because
right.
Fitzmagic is a real thing. It's just he's a charismatic personality, and just as a character in a storyline, it's kind of fun. But yeah, this idea of safety is probably going to continue to be reoccurring. I want to know what their over their 5-year plan is what I'm going to say, because I think that the Denver Broncos, who we'll get to, decided to go with Teddy Bridgewater because they still think that they have a shot at Aaron Rodgers next offseason. I'm curious if Washington feels the same way, and this is just a stopgap year. Maybe there's some thought in Washington that Heineke actually might be great, and they brought in Fitzpatrick.
Then they're really fucking stupid. Then they're really stupid, and I don't think Ron Rivera is a stupid guy.
He is a defensive guy, though.
That's true.
And I think that that's kind of at the heart of this. I can't say for certain, but I'm going to go back and try to track a bunch of these types of decisions and see how many times it was a defensive head coach that was making these decisions.
Vic Fangio is also a defensive head coach, interestingly enough.
Great point. I think that
might be onto something.
I think we might be onto something. I think that when this happens, it's probably because the head coach is not an offensive innovator, and instead they're looking for somebody that can just game manage. And Ryan Fitzpatrick pretty much can do that. I mean, at the end of the day, Ron Rivera is going to hang his hat on the defense, and he thinks that the defense is going to win him games, and that the quarterback is not. It's not that he thinks that the quarterback is unimportant, but maybe less important than one might think. So maybe there's this deeper psychology there that we hadn't quite thought of before, but I'm going to have to do some digging on that. As for the rest of this division, yeah, it's a division.
It's a division. I want to go back to before we maybe dive into the rest of this.
Sure.
The Giants suck. I don't really want to talk about them, but them, maybe being like, oh, we can get Aaron Rodgers or, Deshaun Watson if he's not in jail or whatever next year, or, whoever may become available. This is where I think teams in all sports kind of shoot themselves in the foot a lot of times, is when they try to plan for the future with variables that they do not have control of. The example that pops into my head right away is the 49ers. In the draft, they decided not to go after Mahomes or Deshaun Watson or a quarterback in that first round, and picked Solomon Thomas instead, because their plan was to get Kirk Cousins in the offseason. Didn't end up getting Kirk Cousins. They decided to trade for Jimmy Garoppolo instead. Garoppolo had his good years, but they could have had Mahomes, is basically the bottom line here. I feel like the Broncos and Washington are kind of heading into that same path here, where they're like, oh, we'll just get Aaron Rodgers, and then another team's going to come in, get him, and they're going to be like, now we have the 14th pick in the draft again, the 18th pick in the draft again, and we can't really get one of those quarterbacks.
There's no hope this year for the Washington football team.
I think they're going to be very good, by the way, just because I think their defense is so...
Yeah.
I think it's maybe the best defense in the league. And Fitzpatrick's fine. He's an 8-8 quarterback, but if you give an 8-8 quarterback a 13-3 defense, maybe you get like an 11-5 team, or 12-5, because there's more games now, which I'm not used to.
And my last thought is just, maybe they turn this around and they become the Buccaneers. What I mean by that is excellent defense, have some pieces on offense, just don't have the quarterback, and then the GOAT becomes available in the offseason. Even though we were just talking about you shouldn't plan for that. Maybe Rodgers does go to Washington and they become immediate Super Bowl contenders.
Right.
So the future is bright because of that defense. But this season, I don't know. Let's go to the AFC West.
Love it.
Will the Chargers ruin the Chiefs' Super Bowl dreams?
Coming up next.
I'm super high on the Chargers. This is a division that sort of is, I was alluding to earlier, it's kind of like the NFC South where like the ceiling for a lot of these teams is actually quite high. The Raiders, I think they lost like 6 out of their last 8 last season. They just fell apart to finish the season. I think a lot of that has to come back on John Gruden. Neither of us are big John Gruden guys.
I have zero confidence in the Raiders this year.
I have no confidence either. However, they should be a team that win 6 to 8 games. As are the Broncos. The Broncos are playing to win some games this year. They should win 6 to 8 games. The Chargers, they should win 10 to 13 games.
If they drafted Justin Fields. Carry on.
That's true. That would have been awesome, actually. But the Chargers, they should win 10 to 13 games. They have Justin Herbert. They got Austin Eckler back, who is, sneakily one of the most productive running backs when healthy.
They have the best wide receiver to ever play, Keenan Allen.
They have the best wide receiver to ever play. They've got some
Brother
really.
Sam.
That's right. If you ask our good friend Brother Sam, they have Bosa on defense. They have Asante Samuel. They have a very interesting, good team. So it's not really, are they going to ruin the Super Bowl chances? But like more so, is there a second playoff team now in this division? I think very possibly yes.
I think the Chargers and Justin Herbert are sneaky contenders to win the AFC. Not the AFC West, the whole AFC.
There it is. Hot takes.
I feel it. I have never once said Justin Herbert is bad.
Yeah.
That is, you can check the records.
Check the records. Go back, please. Actually, do check the records. We get more views.
Right. Look, I'm Justin Herbert. Shout out to him because he got a lot better last year than he was his senior year at Oregon, like a whole lot better. And Anthony Lynn, God bless his soul, seems like a nice man. He lost the Chargers a couple games with his inability to manage down the stretch.
Yeah, big time.
Like he could not manage the clock to save his life. You mentioned Asante Samuel Jr.
Yes.
Let me just say, absolutely love that guy.
Yeah.
Defensive Rookie of the Year candidate this year for me. That team, I think, just top to bottom is a very good team. I like Keenan Allen. I like, when he's healthy, I think Mike Williams is a very good receiver. They drafted a guy out of Tennessee, Josh Palmer, who I was very high on. They brought in Jared Cook to play tight end. You got Austin Eckler back. The line is improved. Their games against the Chiefs are going to be hella fun. I'll just say that. Like, this is a team.
Very fun.
They've always played the Chiefs close, I believe. If they were to, get into the playoffs at 12-5, they can make some noise, I think.
Here's the thing, is the Chiefs have gone basically unmatched in that division for quite a while now. Nobody was even threatening to take them down. This is the first time that they're going to have some real in-division competition. Like I said, I do think the Broncos and the Raiders will have 6 to 8 wins each. Maybe the Broncos win a game against the Chiefs. Maybe the Raiders win 1 game against the Chiefs. What happens if the Chargers win 2 games against the Chiefs? All of a sudden, now that's 4 losses in the division where they basically have gone undefeated in the division. And so now, again, just like the same thing that I was talking about with the Bucks, what happens when you lose the 1 seed and you lose the 2 seed and you lose the 3 seed? How much is that going to matter for a guy like Patrick Mahomes?
Losing the 1 seed now is big because there's only one first round bye. If you're not the 1 seed anymore, then you got to play, 3 games to get to the Super Bowl instead of 2. That's big. And
then anything could happen. You might end up facing a team that just is hitting their stride in the playoffs.
If you get the 2 seed and you have to face the 7 seed, let's just say Browns or Ravens, whichever team doesn't win that division, that's not good. I don't want to play either of those teams in the playoffs.
The Chiefs have the most explosive offense. They score points. I am so confident. What a reversal. 1 year later.
What a turn of events.
What a turn of event. I'm so confident that Herbert can keep up with the score. Would be my reason that the Chargers could actually beat the Chiefs going head to head against each other, is because I think that his arm is just so incredible. It is Mahomesian at times. It's going to be fun to watch these matchups, and it's going to be fun to track the Chargers throughout the season, because I think there will probably be an inflection point midway through the season where they can make the choice: do we become the team of destiny this year or not? And if they so choose, Was it the blue pill or the red pill? It's the blue pill. Yeah. Then they could really make a run at it. I think I'm really high on the Chargers, and this is actually like a sneaky big year for the Chiefs. They just came off of a loss in the Super Bowl. How do they respond to that? I would likely say that they respond very well. They come back hungry and they come back as good as the Chiefs have been. Mm-hmm. But also, Mahomes, he missed 2 games last year, right? He only played 14 games.
Yeah,
or was it the year before?
What was the injury he had? He had a dislocated or a sprained knee or something like that. And then he had surgery this offseason too on, I want to say, his ankle. Let me just,
and this is like going into a totally stupid world of like first take, but let me just propose a hypothetical. All right, so the Chargers are playing very well. The Broncos and Raiders, they both end up winning 7 games. The Chiefs playing well, but let's say that they lose those 4 division games, like I mentioned earlier. And then Mahomes misses 2 games. Just a turf toe injury or something, or a fractured throwing finger or something like that. Immediately, if that happens, they lose the division. If Mahomes loses 2 games, if the Chargers, Raiders, and Broncos play competitive football against the Chiefs, they're not winning the division. And then what happens from there, I don't know. But it's going to be, it's actually like, it's been one of the most boring divisions in football. I think it has the potential to be like really interesting, at least at those top 2 positions. So that's my final thought in the AFC West.
100% agree. And geez, just imagine how much more interesting it would have been if the Broncos drafted Justin Fields.
Could have been really good.
Could have been really fun. Could you imagine if you had Justin Fields, Justin Herbert, and Justin Mahomes battling it out for
I'm so glad you said that. I was going to jump in and say that.
For the next 10 years? Oh, man. Let's move on to the NFC West. We have to talk about our Niners, right?
Have to.
Because we're big biased here. All right.
It's a backdoor 49ers pod.
It's a backdoor 49ers pod. I got 2 questions for this division because I wanted to talk about the Niners, but then I wanted to talk about other people too. My first question is, do the Niners have the best roster top to bottom in this division? I think maybe their quarterback, they don't have the best in the division. That's probably a very accurate statement to say. In fact, you can make a very strong argument they have the worst quarterback in the division. If it's Jimmy or Trey, doesn't really matter who. But I think their, top 2 wide receivers are, there's some good wide receivers in this division. I think if their weapons with Ayuk, Debo, and Kittle, I think Kittle is the X factor there and kind of gives them, maybe the best top 3 in the division. I think their running game is going to be the best in the division. I think their offensive line is much improved this year. Their defensive line is stupid.
Yeah.
It's like stupid good how it's just incredible. They have 11 guys who I think could be starters on NFL teams that are in their defensive line room right now. Nick Bosa was like a top 30 player in the NFL his rookie year when he was healthy. You're adding him back. You're adding D Ford back, who I don't know what, miracle God worked on D Ford, but somehow he's like back and looking better than he did before. We thought he was going to retire in the offseason. That's kind of what the reports were. And like day 1 of training camp, he was out there. We were thinking, okay, you know what? If we somehow get him back like end of the season, that'd be great. He's going to play week 1. He's going to be in there on 3rd down week 1. Eric Armstead's going to get to go back to playing on the inside on passing downs. Fred Warner's the best linebacker in the game. I don't know. I know I'm a homer. I know I'm biased, but I think they very well may have the best roster in the division.
I'm going to agree with you because I'm also a homer, but also because, you might instinctively, it's also a fact. You might instinctively say the Rams because of how much they've paid in draft capital to get some guys. When you start lining up guys like Jalen Ramsey, obviously Jalen Ramsey is better than our best corner, but also Jason Verrett was actually sneaky one of the best cornerbacks in the league last year. Mm-hmm. And our pass defense is actually one of the best. And so just like, it's a lot of guys that if you were lining players up, if you're lining Jalen Ramsey up with Verrett, you would obviously say Ramsey, but then you look at the production and you'd be like, it's not actually that big of a difference. And then we make up for that by having a significantly better tight end or a significantly better left tackle. So there's just like little things like that just I think we edge out. as an overall better roster. And so ultimately for the Niners, it just comes down to, because the defense is going to do what the defense is going to do. It's one of the best defenses in football, and the offense is going to do what it's going to do. So like everything should work. We should be scoring more than 25 points a game. We should be holding teams to under 18 points a game. These are things that should just happen. Now we just got to go execute. So everything is lined up. And that speaks to the quality of the roster too, is like, I feel like a lot has to go right for the Seahawks to win games. Mostly Russell Wilson has to put on a show, and DK Metcalf has to just be like God on the football field, which he is. But, and then same with like the Cardinals. I think a lot has to go right for them to be the best team in the division. The Rams, we will see how Matthew Stafford plays. After a couple weeks, my boots might be shaking a little bit, because they might throw the ball 50 times a game. But I think we're the most set up from the start to have the best team. Whether we have the best record or not, I don't know. It's really going to come down to Jimmy. It's a tough division. There are sneaky losses that could arise, but the Niners are in such a good position.
My part 2 question for this division: are we overrating the Cardinals? They were kind of the darling last year coming into the season. They were the team that everyone's like, they might be the sneaky team this year to win the division, make some noise in the playoff, and it kind of feels like we're in the same spot again this year. I don't know. I haven't seen anything from them in the last, 2 years of the Cliff Kingsbury experience. Like, I don't think his offense is all that great. Like, yeah, they spread it out and throw the ball a lot, but not like well.
Yeah.
Like they don't, I don't think it's that great of an offense. I think their defense, especially in the secondary, has major question marks. Robert Alford, one of their corners, got placed on COVID the other day, and I saw a stat that was like the other 4 corners on the roster have played 39 NFL games combined, or it was 31, I think it was, 31 NFL games combined, and all 31 of them are from Byron Murphy. They're so thin in the secondary that they're like a rolled ankle away, a pulled hamstring from like having the worst secondary in the league. They might have it even, if they have all their hamstrings together. I don't know. I'm not, 100% sold on this team yet. I think they could finish below 500.
The reason that we can't call them like a dark horse playoff contender is because of Kingsbury. And this is also speaking to like, do the Niners have the best roster? Yes. They also have the best coach in the division. And that's why I feel more confident, not just because I love the 49ers, but like I feel confident saying that the 49ers will likely win the division this year because they have the best coach. I don't believe in Cliff Kingsbury, I should say he has not yet proven to me that I should believe in him. I'm open to being transformed, but I'm not there with Cliff Kingsbury. I'm not all the way there with Kyler Murray yet either. I think he's awesome. They're not a team you want to play late in the season. They're gonna be hungry, but they're the 4th team. They're the 4th team in the division. Real quick, how do you think that shakes out the division? 1 through 4.
I think, regardless of who the Niners start, and, first of all, shout out to Kyle for just how he's handling the whole thing. I think it's fucking hilarious what he's doing.
It's really funny.
And it's really pissing off all the, big J journalism guys out there.
Well, it's funny too, because like he's talking to a room full of local reporters. Right. And so he's having fun with local reporters and they're having fun back. And then the major news people, they pull it and then they're like, what is going on here? And like, they don't have that context. They don't understand that like Kyle is making jokes with guys that he's been talking to for years now. But yeah, it's been really funny.
Right. Like we all know the starting quarterback's going to be Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah.
He's going to play, 85% of the snaps, and Trey's going to play 15. And then, eventually Trey will get to be playing like 30% of the snaps. And then, Trey will just take over. Like that's how it's going to happen. I digress, but I think the 49ers are 1. I think the Rams are 2. The Seahawks are 3. I'm not, I'm more sold on the Seahawks than I am the Cardinals because they have Russell Wilson. But like, I kind of feel like the Seahawks have been the same exact team for, the last 6 years, where it's like they come into the season and everyone's talking like I'm talking right now. We're like, we don't really believe in this team. They'll win some games, though. They'll be a playoff team, but they're not winning the Super Bowl. They start the year 4-0, and then they play like 3-3 over the middle course of the year, and everyone's like, oh, okay, they're fine. They're what we thought they were. And then that's how it happens. Then they win like their last 2 games before the season starts. And then, something happens in the first round of the playoffs. And yeah.
4 games into the season, every year, people have their MVP vote mailed. And then the next couple games happen. And then they immediately like start making calls. They're like, can I get that back? I might have mailed that in a little too early. This then is my last question. Even though this was your division, this will be my question. If the Seahawks finish 3rd, is this the last year that we see Russell Wilson with the Seahawks? Because what happens after that? The Niners only get better, right? Because if we think Trey Lance is going to be a great quarterback, then he's going to take over next year. They're going to be at the top of the division for a while. Matthew Stafford, if he plays well this year, he'll be there for a few more years. That team will still be really good. The Cardinals will continue to get better because Kyler Murray is still young. So like this is a downward trend for the Seahawks. I couldn't imagine if they finished 3rd that Russell Wilson would be like, yeah, this is cool. I'm cool with this.
If they, finish 3rd, and, especially if they don't make the playoffs, because they could finish 3rd and still make the playoffs. But,
True.
I think if they don't, win the division, make it to the conference finals this year. Wait, that's not conference championship. I'm on like NBA mode here, calling it the conference finals. I don't know if Russell Wilson will be gone. I don't know if Pete Carroll will be gone, but I don't think those two will be back together. I think they're going to make a decision one way or the other, and I think it's probably the right thing to do because I think, with that setup there, I feel like we've reached the end of the road.
We've seen all we needed to see. Okay, I will take it to the AFC East unless you have any final NFC West thoughts.
No, we good.
It's a division of young quarterbacks. It's Zach Wilson, it's Tua, it's Mac, it's Josh Allen. The quarterback is the most important position. And so because of that, does this division have the highest ceiling? The Patriots won a lot of games last year with Cam Newton, who was having one of the worst seasons a quarterback has ever had. And he was in and out of the...
I think Cam can still play.
I think he can too. I think last year was a bad year, but last year was a bad year. Last year
after
was
the
bad.
COVID thing, he was like, you remember he started the year really good.
He was great.
And then he got COVID, and then it was kind of just downhill after that.
But they still won 7 games. They went 7-9.
Mm-hmm.
That's the power of Bill Belichick. Now you add Mac Jones, who everyone is like really high on out of Foxborough, but you got Mac Jones, who has the potential to win them quite a few games if they already won 7 games with what was a terrible quarterback season. Then you got Tua, who we like a lot. We love the Dolphins. They're a team that remind me a lot of the Niners over the last few years, where it's just like injuries and some bad quarterback situations and just stuff didn't go the right way, but they have an excellent head coach and they have a really good team overall. So the Dolphins should be really good. Zach Wilson, I don't know, but we both love Saleh and we both believe in Saleh. They're probably not going to be a great team, but like the potential is still there this season. And then obviously Josh Allen and the Bills, they remind me to come back to Josh Allen and the Bills because I have an NBA comp that I want to go through. But based on the potential quality of these young quarterbacks, I think it does have the highest ceiling of some of these divisions. Obviously, the NFC West is the best division in football, but this division could be really good if all those young quarterbacks play at the level that they possibly could play at.
They have 4, I think, really good quarterbacks in that division. And in many ways, I feel like during draft time, I got painted as a Mac Jones hater because I said I didn't want the 49ers to pick Mac Jones at 3, which was never an indictment of Mac Jones, but more that I'm like, Justin Fields was my guy who I wanted there.
Yeah, same.
Or Trey Lance. I wanted a dynamic playmaker there. Mac Jones, but I had been telling you since Jimmy Garoppolo got hurt the second time in October or whenever it was, and I started looking at quarterbacks because I'm like, I kind of feel like this might be the end of the line for Jimmy here. Mac Jones was one of the first guys I mentioned to you. I was like, one guy I really like is Mac Jones from Alabama. He'll air that hoe out. That's something I said to you. And then, the second guy he was not, up there at the time on the draft boards. I was like, Zach Wilson's another guy from BYU who I'm like, I think he fits Kyle Shanahan really well. All this is to say, this is a good division, I think. Like, I think the Dolphins, the Bills, and the Patriots are all playoff caliber teams. But, I think the Jets are going to be, they're not going to be great right away. I think we kind of need to pump the brakes on them because I think there's a lot of hype about them. But I think they're going to be basically running the Shanahan scheme. That's what's going on there. Zach Wilson fits that perfectly. I love their wide receiver room. Corey Davis, Jamison Crowder, the rookie Elijah Moore, Denzel Mims, Keelan Cole. I like this division a lot. I forget what your original question was, but I think it's basically a good division.
Yeah, that's really it. I mean, the questions are just ways to get into talking about the team, so it doesn't even matter. But I do think that the ceiling here is really high. And let me do my Bills comp real quick. The Bills and Josh Allen specifically are Giannis and the Bucks.
Okay.
And I think that they're about ready. I think that they are about ready to win. I think that Josh Allen specifically, overpowering superstar leader of your team, the same way that Giannis is like this big, overpowering superstar leader of your team. Excuse me. They're both teams that for the last few years now, that like everyone has been saying, can they get over the hump? And there have been big questions about the two superstars, Josh Allen and Giannis Antetokounmpo. Mm-hmm. And there were even indicators for both of these guys that would suggest that they wouldn't be able to improve. With Giannis, it's the free throw shooting. He showed that he can improve there. With Josh Allen, it was the accuracy. And he showed that he could improve there as well. So it's both of these things that lead me to say that this is a sort of a fair comp. Obviously, there's no one-to-one comparisons when you're going cross-sport. But the reason I just wanted to bring it up was because...
Right, you want to be on the right side of history.
It's because I wanted to be on the right side of history. That's right. I don't think the Bills are the best team in the NFL. They don't have the best odds at winning the Super Bowl. But just in the same way that the Bucks ended up winning the finals last year, I think that, a lot of things had to go right for the Bucks to win. The Nets had to be injured. They had to go up against a team that didn't have a very strong big man. I think if a few things like that happen in the NFL this season, then the Bills could end up winning the Super Bowl. Again, they're not the best team in the NFL. They don't even have the best odds of winning, but I see the comparison here, and I just wanted to address it. I wanted to be on the right side of history.
Yeah. That's going to bring us now to the last division, I think. The AFC North. Mm-hmm. My question for this one is, you want to talk about turn of events and where we were last year. Can the fucking Cleveland Browns win the Super Bowl? Because I think they can.
Now we're having the conversation. I'll tell you what, I think that absolutely they can. If Baker Mayfield can play the way that we now know that he can play, mm-hmm. then there's nothing that can really stop them. They are up there with the Chiefs, in my opinion. They have an insane defense. They have a two-headed monster at running back. This is a team that is absolutely capable of winning the Super Bowl.
If Baker Mayfield plays like he played like the last, I think it was 7 games of last year, where he had 11 touchdowns and 1 interception and just doesn't turn the ball over, that's all they need. Because they got, do I say this?
Say it.
They got the best, pure running back in the league in Nick Chubb.
Say it. Sure. Why not?
They got the best running back in the league. I mean, pure runner in the league in Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb's fucking good. That's all I'm saying here. And we also forget they have Odell Beckham Jr. Mm-hmm. Say what you will about the offense, and everyone's like, oh, they were better after Odell went down. I'm like, you're a dumbass if you think losing one of the top, I don't know, there's a lot of good receivers, maybe like 10 to 12 receivers in the league, makes you a better team. You're just stupid if you think that. It was obviously that, Baker and Stefanski just got more comfortable together. Like, that's what happened there. I don't know. I think this is a Super Bowl team. If there's any team in the AFC that can give the Chiefs a run for their money, I think it's the Browns.
I agree. And on the Odell Beckham Jr. thing, I just want to say, the value of star wide receivers doesn't always show itself in the regular season. Obviously they put up great numbers, but there are no-namers that put up great numbers as well. They really start to show their value in the biggest moments, and that's in the playoffs and in the Super Bowl.
Yes.
If you are going to the final minutes of the game, Baker Mayfield's got to make a throw and someone's got to make a catch. You want Odell Beckham Jr. out there because he has the capacity to change the game with one catch. He can make a catch that a no-namer can't. He can make a catch that some guy off the practice squad that's your 6th string wide receiver cannot make. That's the value of the superstar wide receiver. Mm-hmm. So absolutely they're going to be a better team with him. And it might not show up until one exceptional catch in the conference championship or in the Super Bowl. But when that happens, when Odell Beckham Jr. makes an insane catch in the playoffs, everyone's going to have to apologize. So shout out to Odell Beckham Jr. Shout out to Baker Mayfield, who we did not believe in. We never did. And look at where we are now.
Let's talk about that really quick because, there's been a couple players on this podcast who were like, we didn't believe in them and they proved us wrong. Yeah. Because you know what happens when you get around like good coaching? You get better. Like, I'm sorry, like just a big issue that I think a lot of, people in media have is they're like, this player was this in 2018 and he's going to be that forever. Like media and fans. I think, if you wanted to talk about like, who's another guy? I can't think of another guy off the top of my head for the NFL, but like Andrew Wiggins, for example. You're like, Andrew Wiggins was this on this date and now he's going to be that forever. Like players get better over time. That's kind of why if you have a 18 or 20-year-old come into the league and you're expecting them to be, an all-star right away, you're stupid. It's not going to happen. I mean, sometimes it does happen, but for the vast majority of them, the player you are your rookie year is not the player you're going to be in year 4. And if that is what happens, then you're in a shitty situation. And
also, just to reiterate a point that you made, one of your best points of the podcast.
Hell yeah.
We're talking about Andrew Wiggins, and you talked about how progression is not linear. So
yes,
in Baker Mayfield's case, it doesn't necessarily mean year 1 to year 2, there's a big jump. Then year 2 to year 3, there's a big jump. What it means is that like it'll ebb and flow. And that's where the learning occurs also. So, progression, like you said, is not linear. And Baker Mayfield has gone up and down. And then the second half of last season, he was going up. And so I expect him to continue to rise and to continue to grow and to continue to prove me wrong. And I think that's the same case with Lamar Jackson as well. It's not going to be a straight upward trajectory. There's going to be some rough patches like there have been in the playoffs.
I got to say, too, about Lamar Jackson, because we're here. And I've been a Lamar Jackson fan since 2016, before he was even draft eligible. I was like, this is the guy here. And, he did me so proud when he won the MVP in his first full year as a starter. A lot of Lamar's issues were with, the team around him and the scheme around him in many ways. Greg Roman is an excellent coordinator when it comes to the run game. Some of the stuff they do with, their option plays is brilliant. But his passing concepts are dog shit. Like every play, they're just running mesh or forwards.
Sure.
Like quite literally, that's all they're running. Is they're running crossing routes and just sending everyone deep, no matter what the situation is. And they had, a lack of talent at wide receiver, and they went out in the first round and got a guy in Rashad Bateman who I really like. And it's a pity that, he tore his groin and is going to miss the first 4 weeks of the season. I love Lamar. That's all I'm trying to say.
I do too. I fully support Lamar, and I expect him to continue to improve.
But I wish he would get vaccinated.
Oh, yeah, never mind. So maybe I don't fully support Lamar. That's a good point. And hey, listen, it's a learning process because, we had the all-time great take of takes with Deshaun Watson. We thought he was such a high-character guy. And then as soon as we released that podcast, everything came out about him.
I think we said exactly on Deshaun Watson. I think we said, and I quote, "This is a good man."
I said he was the highest character guy in the NFL. I said that. That's out there.
Guys, we're fucking stupid.
Yeah, we're dumb. But again, like you mentioned earlier, those Browns-Ravens games, the way that those play out, I'm excited to see those games, and I'm excited just generally because I think that this year there's a lot of parity in the NFL. I think there's going to be a lot of teams with more losses than you would expect. I don't think there's going to be, like in years past, I don't think there's going to be 3 teams at the top of the league that are 13-3 that end up just winning the Super Bowl because, of course, they're supposed to. It's always more exciting when the Giants, who are barely over 500, end up winning the Super Bowl back in 2008 or whenever it was. And obviously, I'm not saying a 9-8 team is going to win the Super Bowl this year, but what I am saying is just I think a lot of those wins will get chipped away from the top teams and be replaced with some of those mid-tier teams. and it'll create a more competitive and more interesting conclusion to the rest of the season.
100% agree. I think the talent in the league right now, it's been a big theme we've talked about through the whole year of this pod. Whenever we've done sports pods, is appreciate the kind of golden era of sports that we're in. I'm very excited. I'm very much looking forward to it. We are recording this podcast 7 days from, football games that, a lot of people say preseason doesn't matter. I can't remember who said it, and I wish I could give them credit for saying it.
Shout out.
But they were like, preseason games matter. They just don't count. And we're a week away from getting games that count. And I'm so excited for it. Before we go, Super Bowl picks, it's a cliche but fun thing to do. We're probably going to be wrong. I think there's an obvious answer, so besides the Chiefs and the Bucks, give me your Super Bowl picks.
Right. So in the NFC, it's the Bucks and it's the 49ers. And in the AFC, it is the Browns and Chiefs and Bills. Those are the 5 total teams that I see competing for the Super Bowl this year. So obviously I'm a homer, and anytime your team has a chance to win the Super Bowl, I think you should just pick them because, you put that energy out into the universe. You never know what you're going to get. So in the NFC, I'm picking the San Francisco 49ers. In the AFC, I want to be on the right side of history, so I'm going to go ahead and take the Buffalo Bills. And hey, maybe they don't put it all together. Maybe Cleveland is the best team. Maybe the Chiefs prove that last year's Super Bowl loss was a fluke. But I'm going to go ahead and just take Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills because I think that it's going to be a weird year, and in weird years, weird teams win the Super Bowl. Right on. So, however, I'm not saying that they're going to win the Super Bowl. I'm saying that the 49ers are going to win the Super Bowl. So, 49ers defeat the Buffalo Bills in the Super Bowl.
I agree with the 49ers. If we're being completely unbiased here, my number one team, I think, in the NFC is the Bucks. My number 2 team, is the 49ers. If you want me to be unbiased to a third degree there, pick a third team, that's when it gets dicey. I think, though, that, the Packers have the best quarterback of the remaining group, so I'll probably go with the Packers. I'm picking the Niners because I said I couldn't pick the Bucks, but if you wanted like an unbiased take, then it's going to be the Packers after those two. Anyways, Niners, and then the AFC, I'm going with the Cleveland Browns.
Incredible.
They're going to, a reversal of fate here.
Incredible.
The curse will be lifted, except not fully because they will lose to the 49ers in the Super Bowl. Kevin Stefanski will once again be unsuccessful in leading his offense against the vaunted 49ers defense, much like he was in the 2019 NFC divisional round.
And this time Nick Bosa will take that flag and plant it right into Baker's heart.
Look, if Nick Bosa got vaccinated, anything can happen. So for all you teams out there who did not get named, unless you're the Houston Texans or the Detroit Lions or the New York Giants, because you guys have no chance at winning this year. Mm-hmm. You are bad teams. Mm-hmm. I apologize, but that's just how it is. For all those other teams out there, for all other 29 teams, you have a shot this year. God bless you, and God bless America!
What a finish.